Okay, ready? I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's now 7:03. Members present are Joe Tolosano, Michael Parker, Bill Meyer, Kathy Devlin, and we have Brian Lissinger and Mike Marinaccio at the table this evening. Present in the audience are, and for reports would be Selectman Bud Noor and Superintendent of Schools Brian Zapla. All right, next business of order will be the Board of Education update.
Okay.
Want to come up here?
Sure.
Okay. Be easier, I think.
Yeah, I'll just sit right here. Try to read from this. Good evening. Just to kind of give you a quick update. Last Friday, the school districts were all required to submit their reopening plans for this upcoming fall, which obviously we submitted them. I won't go through the entire plan. It's pretty detailed, about 110 pages, but I did want to touch upon some of the most important items, as they may have some financial implications as we go forward. Basically, we were tasked with coming up with 3 different plans. One that has a full on-campus 5 days a week. One that is a hybrid plan in which students and staff would be coming to school. All staff would be coming to school, but students would be coming to school on alternate days, in which 50% of the students would be in on Monday, then the next 50% on Tuesday, and then they would keep alternating. In this situation, we would have to provide obviously some digital learning to those students who are off campus on their particular day. With both the plans, the on-campus and the hybrid model, the students have the opportunity to not come or participate in on-campus learning and do total remote learning, of which then the school is obligated to provide them with some kind of educational programming. Obviously, there would be some cost implications there as far as additional technology equipment to support two learning schools, really, one on campus and one remote. The final plan is going to be similar to what had happened last spring, in that if the conditions warrant, the schools will be closed down and nobody will come to school, and all of these students will be engaged, as well as the staff will be engaged in remote learning. As far as some of the facility setups, we've really been doing a lot of work kind of analyzing how can we best accommodate social distancing to the extent possible. To do this, we're going to have to revamp our classrooms. All the rooms have been cleared out, except for the desks. So all of the extra in-class libraries, supplies, learning centers, manipulatives are cleared. All of the desks will be facing in one direction, and the teachers will not be allowed to rearrange the desks. And this goes counter to what we know in education, as we're trying to facilitate really collaborative learning and group work. This will really goes counter to that. All the classrooms will have PPE supplies and sanitizing supplies. We have purchased masks for every teacher. We've actually purchased 2 masks. One is a cloth reusable mask. One is a reusable mask that has the window on the front so the students can see the facial expressions of the teachers. We've also bought face shields for all of the teachers, as well as plexiglass shields that they can put up at their desks. And in every classroom, as well as common areas throughout the building, we have hand sanitizing dispensers that we have installed, and we have procured the necessary supplies to last us for a couple months. I told the staff that we will always have, Jim McPheaton staff, that I always want at least a 3-week stockpile at any given time of all of our PPE and sanitizing. So far, the supply chain has been good. We've been able to procure them, but in case we are unable to, we will always have at least a 3-week supply. We also have to do some repurposing of the space in the schools. We're looking at music rooms, gyms, and cafeterias, in which we will be, because these are larger spaces, so that we may be moving classes into those rooms to accommodate social distancing. Additionally, they'll be used for other things such as where we serve meals, because obviously, especially at the elementary school, which is a large population, putting all of those students in the cafeteria would not be healthy, because we cannot accommodate social distancing. So we will be delivering meals to the music rooms, to the gyms, to the cafeterias, to the library media centers, where we will have our lunch waves occur. In order to allow students and staff to go outside as much as possible, we are renting 14 event-style tents that will be put up in the courtyards and outside of the school buildings, so that staff and students can go outside and have their mask breaks, as well as eat lunch or any other kind of outside classroom instruction. Directional hallway traffic, obviously we're taking a look at that, and we've suspended all of our locker use, community use of all the facilities. It has been suspended indefinitely. We need a lot of time to do sanitation overnight of all the facilities, and community events take up some of our custodial time, and they need to be dedicated to doing with enhanced sanitizing as opposed to managing community events. There are a number of containment plans per the CDC. I won't go through them all, I'll just name them out. We have containment events in case we have close contact with someone that has COVID-19, in case someone has presentations of symptoms, in the case of positive diagnosis with no symptoms, and in case there's a confirmed case that has entered the school, regardless of the community transition. We've seen some increases in our enrollment over the past couple of weeks in the schools, which in usual times that would be a good sign. Right now it's probably not. But because of this, we've had to make some serious adjustments in all of our schools to our programming. In the elementary school, we are reallocating our support staff that is certified, such as reading specialists, interventionists, and we are transferring them into the class as third, fourth, second grade teachers, so that we can lower those class sizes due to the high enrollment we had and the increases in enrollment that we're experiencing. All band and chorus ensembles and lessons have been canceled for the year. We are revisioning physical education and art to make it more independent as opposed to group work. And we are enhancing our social and emotional programming, especially at the beginning of the school year at all three of the schools. At the middle school, there will be no band. This is becoming now a general music class. Our tech ed classes will transition away to the shop model that they have been operating on and become more computer-based. Science labs at both the middle school and the high school will be done either virtually or as presentation. And again, a revisioning of the physical ed and art at all of the three schools. At Summers High School, again, we have reallocated some of our non-teaching, our teaching staff that was in the support role, or interventionists specifically, so that they will take on core academic courses to lower the class sizes. We've eliminated approximately 13 courses at the high school because these were lower enrollment courses, and we thought it would be better served to put these teachers in higher enrollment courses, again, to reduce class sizes to accommodate social distancing. Some of our advanced placement courses will be done online. We're allowing for early graduation of students who meet the requirements so that, again, we can try and reduce the population in the school. And again, we're looking at some of our late arrival and early dismissal policies for the students, again, to really take a look at lessening the population. So in general, you know, there's a lot more detail in the plan. I think that those are the big items. I have a summary. I sent it today. I don't know if
it's in your guys' packet. It's the second page.
Kind of an update of where we are and where we're projecting to go. Right now, as of this afternoon, Mr. Boutwell projected that we will be giving back approximately $214,000 to the town that was not expended in last year's school budget. If you take a look at that top chart, it kind of says where we are with our COVID-19 expenses from last year. During the spring, in anticipation that we were going to have a difficult school year, we started our planning as far as purchasing a lot of our supplies. You can see the breakdown there, a cost of approximately $210,000. So far this year, in less than a month in this fiscal year, we have spent about $155,000 of unbudgeted items in order to meet the needs of the school system for us to be opening up the schools. Going forward, you can see there's a lot yet to be determined. We don't know the impact of staffing, whether we're going to need to hire more teachers, whether we're going to have teachers who will be out on leave, and therefore we will need to provide them leave pay as well as hiring a replacement for them. The remote learning plan for those students who opt out, there will be an additional expense as we have to set up the technology in order to accommodate their remote learning needs. Custodial staff, we're still analyzing whether we're going to need to bring on additional custodial staff because of all the enhanced sanitizing that we're going to need to do, particularly during the day when students and staff are on campus. Sanitizing supplies, additional PPE will always be an ongoing cost. Our lunch expenses, we don't know where we're going to be going with that. Our lunch program has always been self-supporting, and therefore it has not been a budget item. As we eliminate the hot lunches and go to this grab and go, we don't have metrics on how many kids will be participating in something like that. And also, as we saw last year, if we have to go remote, and if the governor continues or issues a new executive order in which we have to absorb the salaries, that will be an additional cost for not only the lunch staff, but other staff as well. We anticipate that we will have additional special education because we have our immediate students who have lost 3 months of education. We won't know the impact of that until we get them back into the schools. And obviously, we're leaning pretty hard on our corporate council right now, as there are a lot of things that we don't know and questions we have, and we want to make sure that we're proceeding in accordance with all of the legislative acts and executive orders. In looking at, so these are all things that we don't know when we will know these costs. It will be something that we will be monitoring daily and reporting back to the Board of Education on a monthly, if not bi-weekly basis. There are also some funding sources and strategies that we're looking into. The CARES Act only gives us about $39,000. Roughly scratches the surface, doesn't even buy me half a teacher. We have CIP discretionary funds of $25,000 that we will be tapping into. We may come back to the CIP committee and ask if we can have some of those dedicated projects that we put in there last year, the security cameras, and to see if we can get permission to reallocate those money towards other COVID-19 expenses that we may encounter. We're waiting for the state of Connecticut to come out with how much of the expense or how much money will be given to the boards, the school systems. FEMA, we've also been working with Mike and Brian, feeding them all of our information to make it return to feed on to FEMA, and we are still waiting to see what allocation will come back from that. In the budget, we anticipate that we can do some realized savings because some of the programs that we originally were going to implement this year will be delayed, probably until next year. We're looking at all of our resources and supplies, and we are, again, if we go to a remote type of situation, we will have some significant savings there. Last year we got a head start on supplies, so we think that we have some realized savings there. And then last but not least, one that I don't want to, hopefully we don't have to talk about, but if we get into a situation we may have to furlough staff, especially as we move into that remote learning phase. The final thing I'll say is that in order to try to put a good strategy together for the upcoming year, I formally froze the budget on July 2nd so that there are only critical expenses are being paid out as well as expenses that are directly related to COVID-19.
Any questions?
I do have a couple.
Go ahead.
You said enrollment was up slightly? I thought most things I had heard enrollment was trending down because of parents choosing not to send their kid back.
Well, there's still, we're looking, we don't have a definitive number, but those kids who are choosing to be out, all right, they're still counted on our enrollment. So at any point in time, they can say, okay, I'm staying home, but tomorrow they can say, I'm coming back. So we count them in our enrollment projections right now. But when we start talking about shifting of staff, we do accommodate for that. So we will be dedicating some of our staff, probably pulling them out of the classroom and making them dedicated remote learning teachers specifically at the elementary school.
No, it
They
makes
still have to be educated. They're not off our books. They're still part of our requirement.
okay. No, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good, positive things, to save money, to reallocate resources. I mean, I think that's really important. The school lunches I see were one of the biggest costs that we've had. And I know we're one of the very few communities that do not participate in the National School Lunch Program.
Yeah.
Is there any, desire to switch to that so that we don't have to, our property taxpayers are bearing the cost of providing these lunches where almost every other district in the state is getting it provided by federal grants?
Yeah. We haven't had the time to discuss that at this point in time. It's
Okay.
certainly something we can look into.
Thank you.
So Brian, have you surveyed the staff? Because we have the same issue at the university system. We don't know who's coming back or who's going to have extenuating circumstances or need an accommodation. I mean, have you done any?
No. And
We can't because they're off contract.
it's a tough situation. Do we survey the staff? Do we not survey the staff? And in talking with our lawyers who said, listen, and this is a horrible situation. This is I have to be the ogre right now. But right now there are certain federal leave acts that I'm sure you're aware of that are associated with COVID-19. And anyone who believes that they qualify for those leaves based upon the criteria needs to report to me to say I need this, I need this leave.
So you're going to find this all out the first week before school starts.
Well, today we had we had a kind of a town hall with the staff, so they know that, and I'll be following up with them. But we'll try to make accommodations where we can, obviously. But the sad thing is, or the reality of it is just because I have an underlying condition that the CDC classifies as putting me at high risk does not necessarily mean that you get leave or you get an accommodation. It really is, if you take a look at some of the federal leaves, acts, it's really you're quarantined, or you have to take care of a sick child or a child whose school has been closed because of COVID-19. So we're really trying to follow that leaves, prescriptively. There's the ADA, provisions that we also have to abide by, which says that, if we can make a reasonable accommodation, it doesn't say that we have to make an accommodation. So in some cases, we will be able to make reasonable accommodations. In some cases, we will not be able to make reasonable accommodations. So it's a balancing act. It's the biggest headache, believe it, out of this whole thing.
So I actually read the plan, most of it, because I was trying to get ideas for my other job. So, so you're going to close if you have a case. Is that public health guidance?
That's public health guidance.
Because maybe it's different for the K through 12, because we closed Gateway last week and we got our head handed to us.
Well, I'm sure that I'll get my hand in it.
Yeah, because you would only isolate and clean that and contact trace based on that one student.
We took that guidance right out of the CDC guidelines for what to do in these type of containments. Now, this plan remains fluid.
Yep.
We've already made some changes to it, because this came with this, that, and the other thing. We will continue to monitor the CDC guidelines, and like I said, I'm not a scientist, so I have to rely on the scientists to provide that guidance.
And you talk about, if I may, contract cleaning or third-party virtual classrooms. You have those contracts in place, or
For the third-party cleaning?
Yep.
No. No, we're going to do it with our staff. We've secured some enhanced cleaning devices that we will be utilizing that will help with that. those contracts, as you know, are ridiculously expensive. I mean, for one cleaning, I think, for one enhanced cleaning, as we looked into this, and I said, we did some quotes way back when, and I think that for one school system, just for one school, per cleaning, it was in the range of like $45,000. You know, so I mean,
That's good.
And I just have a question on
Kathy,
your,
you and I could go over and clean.
yeah. We all
I
want to
need
be
substitute teachers. I need substitute
There you
teachers.
go. I just have one last question on the return, which was substantial. So is that based on, you know, less use of electricity, maybe contracts that were, maybe first student gave you some money back, or you used less fuel, or?
Well, I think that the majority of the return, you know, there was the return from first student, I think it was about $150,000. Obviously, you know, electricity use, you know, during the spring, that's generally, you know, low because the lights aren't on as much, but we did see some there. I think that the big return was on supplies that we didn't have to use, some programs that we delayed. We didn't pay out stipends. You know, the coaches didn't get paid for the spring sports. Some of the clubs, you know, we had to draw back on. So, you know, I think it was just a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and a little bit from here. But the big thing was probably the first student renegotiation. That was the most substantial one.
I wouldn't mind taking a look at that line by line if I don't want to put more work on you, but because that kind of will predict what happens if we close in October. I mean, if you're going to close the first time you get a case, and I'm not saying that's wrong, you're not going to make it through September, I don't think, quite frankly, and then everything's going to go sideways. So it'd be nice to see how you ended the year and what you saved, because it may be a predictor of what the future would hold going forward. And I know you got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah, I do.
So
We'll see about getting it.
okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, John. I really do. I'm sorry, Brian. I think you've been working like a madman to do all of this. I'm kind of impressed by what you've done, but and there is no but to that. I appreciate the work that you've done. I do think Joe has a point, though, in terms of if we could start to think about the future a little bit financially, that kind of information would help us.
It is a good plan, and it's very agile, and you're going to need agility to get through September. I think if you can get through September, you may have a fighting chance.
Yeah,
It's very impressive. I read the whole thing.
thank you.
Thank you.
So you've had a town hall, and are you going to have an open forum for the parents maybe, or?
We're working on that for tomorrow. It's not going to be an open forum
Well,
because
you can't,
open forums can get unwieldy and go on
Yeah.
forever. So what I am going to be doing is I'm recording, you know, similar to what you've heard to tonight.
Yeah.
We'll put it up there. And we also have a special reopening email address so that parents who need clarity, want to comment, or have questions can email that. We will then develop kind of a whole FAQ
Yeah.
from all of that, and we will send it back out to the parents.
And you have no idea what percentage of students are going to opt out? Do you?
14%.
Oh, you do have that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
We
great.
had like, I think there was only, was it 96% response? Or was it 86?
Oh,
There
that's
was,
really
last
good.
time I checked, there was 94% of the students had responded,
Yeah.
or the information for students. I think it was like only maybe 72 kids
Yeah.
we didn't have information.
Okay, that's great.
And
So you can start estimating some of these additional remote costs and
Yeah, well,
everything like
we
that.
have, we already have those estimations down right now. Yeah, and what we're gonna be doing is, you know, since it's only about 70, I think some parents are waiting for the plan to come out, and as well
Then
as.
they'll make
waiting-
another
and then
decision.
they'll make the decision, so, we will, you know, once, probably starting in August, we'll be starting to make some phone calls to those people who
Yeah.
didn't respond and say, you gotta make a choice, you know? They can always change their mind, which is really creates a logistical nightmare. But you know, that's what we have to
Well, I
do.
do know this governor's sitting on well over $100 million in CARES money. So he's probably waiting for these plans to come in, let's hope, and redistribute them back to you
Yeah, I
towns
think
to
that
support them.
the one thing that I'm concerned about, and I sent this on to the commissioner and to our representatives, is the way that they did the CARE money is inherently unfair
Yeah.
this summer. It's based upon socioeconomic status of each one of the communities, so you can guess where the majority of the
Yeah.
money went.
Yeah.
You know, I understand the need to do that for some things, but this is not a socioeconomic virus we're dealing with right here.
No. No.
So I hope that they will come up with a new formula that will distribute it a little bit more fairly.
Same here.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank you.
Brian.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
See you, Bruce.
Okay, next, selectmen's update.
Hey, Brian, drop a pen.
Uh-oh.
Is it expensive? Is it on heads?
I need that.
Ball marker.
I'd like to make a few comments regarding the controversy of salary administration in the town. Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance reviewed, vetted, and approved the current fiscal year budget, including a line item for salaries. Historically, the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen has embraced and supported the philosophy of compensating employees to reward them for their contributions and as a basis to retain key employees. As you are aware, we run town operations very lean. We don't have a lot of employees in key positions where their experience, their background in business and municipal government have been instrumental in our success. These key employers are always in demand with other towns, and we've identified them and motivated them in order to retain them. Concurrent with this philosophy, we've used the CCM salary analysis by job description, job content, responsibility, and the size of the town to make certain that we are not overpaying people, but also addressing those underpaid key employees to make certain we retain them. I look at this approach as an investment because losing a key employee will end up costing the town more money to replace these individuals at current market rates. In addition, the costs increase with training and the loss of opportunities until the new replacement employee comes up to speed. Likewise, a particular job is only worth so much, and certain employees at the top of their salary range will only receive minimal increases, or we will use bonuses as a way of compensation without increasing their base salaries, which will go on year after year. In my opinion, perhaps the town should look at bonuses only in lieu of yearly increases, especially in those years where revenues don't match expenses. My experience in business indicates the value of this approach, but this is a discussion for another time. Before I took this job and as a member of the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen only approved the salary line in the budget. And we were never asked for our opinion about individual salary increases. I embrace this approach because the first selectman, as the chief executive officer of the town, is the one who has day-to-day contacts and interaction with all employees and is in the best position to evaluate true performance and individual contributions. Previous first selectmen based their own salaries commensurate with the increase in responsibility, and they raised them based upon the growth of the town and other towns' compensation levels for other first selectmen. Last year, I engaged Kathy Devlin and Tim Patrikas to take part in the distribution of salary increases as approved in the budget. I did that because I wanted inclusion, despite the fact that I was not required to do so, given past practices of previous first selectmen. Going forward, I have made a commitment to the Board of Selectmen that they will participate in future discussions of salaries, as well as establishing a more formal procedure governing same. As it relates to my compensation, I took the advice of my Board of Selectmen colleagues last year not to take a salary increase, which included all elected officials. I've been first selectman and on the Board of Selectmen for 10 years, and a review of my salary history indicates an average yearly increase of just 1.25%. Hardly a significant increase given the responsibilities of countless hours required for the job. I'll let my time in office and the results stand on their own merits, and let the citizens make a judgment on the value they have received from the salaries that I am paid. The irony of its current controversy is that the citizens of Summers voted to go to a town manager form of government to provide consistency, predictability, and the experience necessary to manage a multi-million-dollar town budget. The voters' choice was nullified by the inexplicable failure of the town clerk to properly follow state law exactly for the charter review to be valid. The Journal Inquirer in this article expressed disbelief of the failure of the town clerk in one of her key responsibilities and inquired if she had been disciplined for this significant lapse of her duties. I only mention this unfortunate episode because the Charter Revision Committee estimated that a competent and experienced professional town manager would require an approximate salary of between $125,000 and $150,000 a year. My current salary is significantly less than a projected town manager salary would be, and a real bargain given my 50-plus years of executive experience and the years of dedicated and tireless service to Summers. In summary, I'm sensitive to the criticism this kerfuffle has caused, and as such, I've instructed the Chief Financial Officer to immediately rescind my recent salary increase, and I've sent a check to the town for the $3,000 bonus that I was paid. I'll continue to put forth my historical work ethic for Summers and work with the Board of Selectmen to establish a formalized salary approval procedure for all employees. Is there any questions you may have?
Any questions, yeah?
I do have some questions. Thank you for that. I would say first, I think that we all agree here that transparency is extremely important. Is that true?
Sure.
Okay. I'm just reviewing the approved budget for this year, and for first selectman regular salaries, I see a very exact amount of $211,537 for last fiscal year, and then I see the same exact amount of $211,537 for this fiscal year. I know that the first selectman had a salary increase included in there, as well as at least the administrative assistant. If not, I'm not sure what else is contained there. I find it very hard to believe that with those salary increases, we were able to keep the exact same dollar amount in a year-over-year budget, which was the one approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. I'm just wondering maybe if we could shed some additional light on that or provide an explanation as to how the dollars come out to be exactly the same at $211,537.
I'll have to defer to either Brian or to Mike on that.
The budget, when it was passed, included the salary for a emergency management director, who, after the budget was passed, an appointment was made. So there is additional monies in there for a body that doesn't exist currently.
So that was $32,000, correct?
And some change.
Okay, I find it hard to believe the sum of the bonus, or I'm sorry, of the salary increases exactly equal to $32,000. I'll put aside the issue that I have with leaving the emergency management position in the budget, which, when we had already filled it and we knew that we weren't going to use that money, and that was before March when we discussed this budget. That's one issue. My second issue is the fact that the salary increases don't add up mathematically. You're not going to have that exact dollar amount. So I'm concerned with the lack of transparency. That's the first matter. The second matter I'm concerned about is the conflict of interest. And I think that we have clear guidelines here ethically, legally, in state statutes and town ethics codes that prevent you from voting on a budget or a line item where there's a personal gain. So I think that's another matter as well. And I would welcome a response to that as well.
I don't understand the personal gain.
A salary increase is a personal gain. 4.5% salary increase, I would say, is a personal gain.
There really is nothing in the charter, nothing in the ordinances, nothing in state statute that relates to line-by-line item approvals. I mean, the approvals were done at the proper level. It's a matter of the Board of Selectmen knowing exactly, for the most part, what was proposed and voting on that, so.
Mike, I'm referring to the
And-
conflict of
and I-
interest.
I'm not so sure you could call that, I think, a conflict of interest. I mean,
Well, I think that might be decided
it's
by
all
someone
public
else.
information.
Okay, well,
So
I
if you
think,
want transparency, you do what the person who reported this elsewhere to, and put in an FOIA request for, what's everybody making? And they got that information. No one's hiding anything.
I think there's a duty to disclose. I think if you read 7-148H, which is Connecticut General Statutes, and you read our town ethics ordinance, I think very clearly it outlines conflicts of interest when a financial benefit is involved for staff and for elected officials. I think it's very clearly outlined in the statute
I
and in
think
the
if you
ethics
feel
code.
that strongly, then you should file some paperwork with the Ethics Commission,
Okay,
because I don't see it that way.
okay, thank you.
Would you explain to me what you said about the statute saying, or the charter, that we don't have to do line items? That is one thing,
It does.
maybe it isn't required, but in the future, I would request it, because I don't feel when I come here and I'm just looking at this conglomerate that I really understand everything. And going back, way back to, like, I don't know what year I started this, like, let's say the year 2000. Every time the selectmen got together, we did line by line by line, and so we could have discrete.
I don't see why they
items.
didn't do anything differently this year, did they? They were asked,
Line
every
item?
director was asked what they thought their, listen, in the past when I was here, I was told what to give the people who work for me. Since our current first selectman has come on board,
Mhm. I'm not
the
talking
Board of
about that.
Selectmen instituted a performance management system
Yeah.
and tied the salary to that. I then, and I'm sure all the other directors then, were asked to propose, based on performance, what they thought the percentage increase should be. For every one of the people who work for me, I propose a percentage and a justification for that. If somebody was out of range in a salary survey, and I knew they needed to move up a little bit to be competitive, I suggested that. All those percentages that I suggested were given to the Board of Selectmen for review.
Yeah.
This
And I
year?
believe,
I wanna
yes,
correct-
yes, this year. And I do believe that they were all adopted without any change.
No, I'm not, I think you're misinterpreting me. I'm not talking just about salary. I'm talking about, I'm more comfortable looking line by line across the entire, for next year, I would really like to see that. Because when I look at the entire budget, I could, whether it's the Board of Education or the Board of Selectmen budget, it makes me understand where the needs are, what the deficits are. I have nothing to, I'm not talking just about the salaries.
Well, whatever you are looking for, you can meet with us and we'll talk about it and we'll try to fashion that for you.
Well, I think it's fair to say that there has been a reduction in the line-by-line information that the Board of Finance receives. I think to the extent that Kathy's asking for the detail, I think that's fairly reasonable. I mean, you have it all, and you could provide it to us, I think, rather easily. I mean, you have that level of detail. I think if we had information on individual salary items as opposed to a conglomerate number or an aggregate number, and then you set aside money that you wanted to use for bonus allocations.
That's the intention, to set up a formal procedure for that.
That would be helpful to us, at least in understanding, and we could look at what the individual makes and what kind of bonus he or she received based on those numbers. At the moment, we could never make, based on the information we get now, we could never make that analysis, but going forward, we could. So back,
You will ask the Board of Ed for the same information?
I'm sorry?
You will ask the Board of Ed for that same information?
I think I just
I don't-
did earlier.
I don't have
I
a
mean-
problem doing that. I mean, they have the information. I mean, It's
I
not
mean,
that it
you're
isn't.
saying, I mean, I have never seen it myself personally.
Well,
Oh,
they
Mike,
seem
what
to
a-
be reluctant to hand it over.
Let's be clear though, Mike, there's difference between the Board of Education and the Board of Finance. On town municipal government, we have oversight of the budget. That's why you're presenting transfers to us. The Board of Education has the statutory authority to monitor their budget after we give them an allotment. So I agree the transparency is good, and we should get the information from the Board of Education, but I think this board functions differently with Board of Education funds versus town general government funds. And I will welcome an opinion from the town attorney on it as well.
Well, most of the Board of Ed money is based on collective bargaining agreements. There's a very small group that get any other.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that
Joe was
delta's
right about
very
that. There's
small.
a different set of
It's a different-
criteria for
it's a
those
different-
salaries.
But I'll say this, because Kathy and I, when Dave Penny were selectmen, we put this system in place where we allowed both. There were no job descriptions, there was no evaluation systems, there was a collective bargaining unit that was dissolved. We put all this in place with Marcia Mitchell, and I don't know what has happened since then. And let's face it, when you're handling 65, 70 people, not everybody works at the same caliber and the same effort. So we wanted an opportunity for them to compete for additional funds, as Mike has said. I think the issue is that it has to be voted on after the review process by the entire Board of Selectmen.
And I commit to that.
Yes, I
can
noticed,
tell you,
yes.
when I came into this position, there was none of that.
Well,
People-
something happened then
Yeah,
between
something-
Penny,
I think it was
Fella-
your other leader.
Lisa, and your administration. So it probably
Because
got very
The expectation was.
dramatic
everybody-
during Lisa's
The
tenure.
expectation is everybody gets.
See, that doesn't work for
I
me.
said, no, that's not gonna happen. We're
That
gonna
doesn't work for me.
Formalized evaluation system, which we've done. But I concur with you, Bill. We'll be glad to present all that data to you. I think it's important. That's the reason I've suggested to the Board of Selectmen that we do that. My only point is I deal with these people every day, and I know exactly who's doing the job, who isn't. And on that basis, I got recommendations from the 11 directors that work for me, what their recommendations are in terms of salary, administration, and increases, if any. And I've taken that. We've had open discussions about it. So there's no intent to be less than transparent. And if you want more detail for transparency, I'm all in favor of that.
And I have no desire to get into picking who gets a raise or not, because I don't work with these people at
No,
all. You know,
I
and
don't.
I didn't want to get in that business when I was a selectman, but I wanted to get briefed on it and I wanted to vote on it.
Right.
And I think that's where, for me, that's where the issue resides. And to see all that in detail is very helpful for us to manage the overall allotment that we project to you on an annual basis.
I concur with Joe on that. I don't think there's any way that we want to
I have no idea.
intercede
what
in your job in terms of deciding who's doing
No,
the job
no.
right and who.
No, and I understand and I appreciate that, but I'll tell you what this thing came about. I started taking a look at past history, and it was not very comfortable.
But I
Because you
can't
had a first
recall
selectman
ever.
that basically did what you
That
wanted
was
to
the-
do.
Yeah, I mean,
I
you'd
said,
have
we
to go
can't
back
have
and
this.
research it. I think we've all learned our lesson at this point. And,
It's
I
taken
don't
me a long
recall not
time to-
voting for
It's
it,
taken me
but-
a long time to clean up a lot of this stuff.
But there was a vote last year, and they decided not to do an increase. But then this year, there was no vote, and an increase was just done. And we had a whistleblower come forward, a town employee, that brought this to our attention. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known about this.
The ones that got no raise were the elected officials.
Okay.
Everybody else was a town employee, got an appropriate raise based on the review.
I'm not questioning the merit of the raises. I
Well,
think
no, you
town
were just saying
employees,
last year there was a vote and there was no increases.
for the elected, the issue I have is with the elected official raise. That's the,
Yeah.
I mean, I have an issue with the lack of transparency across the board, but the issue I have is with the elected official. The town employees, I think, are a different matter.
So noted, and I will respond accordingly.
Another thing that's changed, and maybe you could help me with this, Mike. In the past, if Joe and I were on the Board of Selectmen, and we monthly or whenever there were transfers made, it wasn't at the end of the year. Is this just to
just to balance the books,
This is just to balance the
clean up
books?
the last.
Yeah,
books
but
to
you don't
close
have
them
any
out.
other transfers that would have been able to, should have come up here before?
No increases, no.
Wanted to know that, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Bud, did you have anything else?
No.
Thank you. So, then the next thing is Mike, CFO update.
I'll let Brian go first to give you a recap of 2019, or excuse me, 2020. And then I will cover a couple of items after that.
Alright, so as of now, so what you have in page 3, these are our numbers as they stand today. We still have a couple of outstanding invoices that we're waiting on, and we have the final quarter stipends for the volunteer firefighters that have to go out. So those are estimated in here, but they're not exact, so this number could change slightly. However, revenues are complete. So end of year, $484,484 over budget in collections. A big portion of that is state aid, as you can see. That was an under budget over allotment of ECS funds. And licenses and permits was up, and that's building permits is really the main driver of that one. Expenses for year end right now, as they sit, would be under budget $155,983. There have been some shifts, and there's still some more to go. There were quite a few items in Public Works. So I don't know if you remember back to last meeting, and I know, Bill, you had brought it up in the last meeting about the overages in Public Works. When he was, right, so when he was getting in, he was trying to handle business between July and March, basically, of last year. We were under the impression that there was going to be no TAR funds. The bond committee hadn't appropriated any monies and so forth, so we didn't know if we were getting anything. So there's a lot of items, and I'm having to go through line by line, basically, and invoice by invoice, and determine what should be a TAR fund and what should have been general fund in road maintenance. So that number could come down a little bit more as well, and be under budget more than it currently is. However, when all things are said and done, the anticipated return to fund balance is roughly $640,000. So you go to the next page, kind of puts it on a macro level. Beginning unassigned fund balance as of July 1, 2020, an audited number of $7 million. We have our unaudited expenses and revenues for fiscal 20. With the return to fund balance of $640,467, with the restricted fund balance for the fiscal 21 budget that was done, it leaves our unrestricted at just over $6.5 million, and with the adopted expenditure budget, it would leave us at roughly 18.64% of reserves. So still right at our 2-month mark. That's basically what that is.
Actually, a 2-month mark is 16.67.
Okay.
So then the next page has a breakdown of general fund grants, budget versus actual, so that you can see. So the ECS was the main driver in that state aid increase, the 191 there. Couple of other small other operating grants. Classify them as non-major, came in short. Police grants for DUIs and so forth. We did not have a fourth quarter DUI enforcement due to COVID. And property tax relief annually just seems to get lower and lower and lower, and almost impossible to pinpoint. And then the next one is a special revenues fund. These are all the other grants that we received during the year that do not impact the tax rate at all. And so we did receive the town aid road monies, the municipal grants and aid, $273,000 in special education. We had a $5,000 grant for town clerk, and then we had $72,000 in payments from the state for ambulance for trips from the prison. And that goes towards the transfer in to the general fund to help offset their increased expenses. Capital projects, I know it's hard to believe, but we are still receiving money from 9th District Road construction. I'm pretty sure that ended before I started here. So it's still mind-boggling to me that we're still receiving monies. That it really shows how slow the state can be on things. This was the final payment of Summersville Mill demolition. We did have one LOSIP reimbursement for the Field Road Park tennis courts. State Emergency Planning Group gave us $11,303 towards a generator for the Emergency Operations Center over at Kibbe Fuller. And then at the bottom, there are your early childhood and your titled funds from the state. These monies, I have no idea. I just see them come in and I verify that they are what they are. I don't know what they were spent on, what they're used for. So any questions on the year in summary?
So you have a general government overage of $90,814.
Correct.
And that's the accounts that the $32,000 bonuses came out of that were not approved by the selectmen?
It would be in those line items, yes.
Okay.
That's basically everything in town hall, IT, that is employee benefits, Board of Finances for the audit, for the budget. There's about, I'd say there's probably 14 departments lumped into that general government line item.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Brian, go back to the pilot. Is that prisons?
That is the pilot in lieu of taxes. That's for the prisons, yes.
Okay.
I've watched that dwindle since I started here.
It's dwindling
It was
all the
100% more when the first year I was here.
Well, when I was first on, it was like 60, I think it was 1.6 million or something. Or maybe it was more than that. It might have been way up higher than that.
Good? Good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, now it's your turn, Mike.
Okay, a couple of items. The first one is tax collection rate. Sure you want to know how that's doing given that we're in the COVID-19 environment. And as of today, the tax department has collected $128,958. $10,128,958. And that is about 42% of the total budget for the year. The budget was around $24,024,028. Compare that to last year, we had collected at this point, actually at the end of this month, we had collected $11,999,609, which was about 50% of the budget. So we're behind last year by about 1.8 million. We have 4 days left. We're bound to get some monies in. I'm not so sure we're going to make up 4 million in that period of time. So, to be honest with you, I thought the impact would be worse than it is at this point, given the fact that the governor's executive order has given everybody 90 extra days to pay, even people who weren't in need. The Board of Selectmen adopted that 90 extra day option. We had to choose either that or an interest option, and this was the easier of the two to administer.
So they have 98 days beyond
So they have until
August
October
1st.
1st to pay whether or
First
not you're
installment.
impacted
Not from
financially.
July 1, they had 90 days. Not after August.
But the
They have
escrows
until
did
the
not
end.
get that allotment, so you got all the escrow payments.
We're getting escrow payments, and usually they come in toward the end, so there's a good chance we may get a shot.
I was gonna say, I think we have a couple
think
more to
that's
go.
damn
We got a
good at
large one
42%.
last week.
Yeah.
We got a check of over 3 million last week from one of them. I think we got a couple to go still, but
Okay.
So it's 90 days from July 1 is
from
the
July
grace
1.
period.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's basically till the end of September they have.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll get a more realistic snapshot then, but It has not negatively impacted cash flow at this point. So we're sitting fairly solid right now, coming up on when state funds start to show up now around end of August and September. So that's the first piece. The second piece is in terms of bonding. I put this together after Brian put his package together. Hold on one second here. I got some exhibits.
Thank you.
First
Thank-
exhibit is a.
Over here we need some more.
Wash your hands.
Yeah.
There you go. There
Not
you go.
just recently, not while I'm here.
It's all right.
It is with you.
He passed it down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First one is a calendar, financing calendar. Now, this shows the key dates. We manage it like a project. We're anticipating a $9.5 million general obligation financing. We got the $10 million appropriation last year at referendum. The key dates we have here are on Friday, September 11th, will be a phone call with Moody's.
Oh,
It's a rating call for our issuance. September 30th, we'll be going out to bid, and then the closing is scheduled for the 15th of October. Now, just fill in some of the details here. The POS is a preliminary official statement, so that goes along with every issue. It's a background of the town, it gives all the details ad nauseum. It includes major financial statement presentations and narratives by management, and representations by management. So currently, we have a 1-year bond anticipation note, which we got earlier in the last year in October, which lasts for 1 year to this October. That was a $6 million band, $36,000 premium at 1.417 net interest cost. That has to be paid off, and then on top of that will be additional money of $3.5 million approximately. Now, having discussions with our financial advisor, we under $10 million is in the wheelhouse for many banks right now. It's a very attractive investment, and so we could actually be seeing a lot of banks bidding on this issuance if it's kept under, well, we would have to keep it under 10 million. The anticipation is we would probably get anywhere from $600,000 to $750,000 in premium on this issuance. So we're thinking of lowering this down to like 9.2 million. So if we were to get 750, we stay under the 10 million, and we stay in the wheelhouse for your banks.
How much of a premium we getting?
The anticipation is, again, it's all estimated at this point, anywhere from 500 to 750,000.
Why would we take such a big premium? I mean,
You're
we're paying
asking me.
that.
I'm asking the financial advisor. It's a premium type of an issuance for a lot of people. They want that. So, I'm looking at a potential 20 or to 24-year term. Again, we haven't arrived exactly on that.
But let me make sure I'm just understanding this right. So a bond premium is money the issuer is going to pay to us.
Yes.
This thing going to be financed. So instead of getting a lower cost or instead of a lower issuance.
Well, it becomes your net interest cost when you figure it all in.
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't understand why we would take such a big premium. I mean, with our bond advisor and our bond attorney, they're recommending taking this very large premium because
Absolutely.
we have to repay this premium. They're not giving us free money.
We use that premium to pay off our interest in our bond. We can use that to pay our principal and interest.
Okay.
So,
So you're planning to put that into fund balance?
It's gotta be
It's
used in the bond
restricted fund
project.
balance.
Yeah,
It's not
restricted
really
in the
fund
bond
balance. It's got to be used on bonds and exclusively on bonds. So.
Okay.
Goes into the project's pot, so that 9.5 or 9.2 million is with the premium. They can only be used for those projects, so principal and interest.
So,
Okay.
I mean, the benefit of that premium is you help levelize your debt service payments too, and then therefore avoiding any impact on taxes.
So
So,
they're competing for the bond is what they're doing,
Yeah.
based on the premium.
yep.
But I guess my concern, I mean, is the interest rate we're gonna earn in the bank greater than the interest rate we're gonna pay on the note, on the bond, not the note, the bond?
Given the way interest rates are now, no.
Okay, so what's the
I don't
benefit
think
then
they
of
ever
taking a
have.
premium and putting it in the bank if we're losing money?
Well, I may not. I probably actually will use it to make one of my first bond payments, so that I don't have to take anything out. So
Okay.
I just roll it right back
There'll
in.
be a band for a certain period based on the projects, or you're just gonna go direct?
And the bands have already been done.
Bands are done.
Yeah, there was a
This is-
6-month
Yeah.
and a 12-month.
So
So
the
this
$6
is
million
finali- this is
spent.
finalizing those bonds based on the band. I know what you're doing now.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, it's a good time to go to bond market, no question.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is.
It's a good time
And
to
they're
go
gonna
to
fight
market.
for it.
Like, what
Especially
are you
with our
planning
rating.
for it? You have a plan in mind, or is it,
What's
you know,
that?
do you have a new planned project for the bonding?
This
or-
is complete.
There are a number of projects that remain to be finished that are in year 3 of a 3-year plan that was drawn up.
Okay,
Road surfacing, and then
A
there's
lot
some
at the school.
more
Oh, yeah.
school projects that are left.
yeah, okay.
Big ones, the roof still over there.
And you gotta be doing well on the road surfacing when oil was down for a
Yeah.
while there.
So we're two-thirds done with that now. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure they finished this year's. We're just about done with it. So
I think so, yeah.
track is done.
The track
So
is
the
completed.
the real big expenses have been kind of behind us at this
Yeah.
point.
So this is ending the band based on the projects we approved 18 months ago, or whenever the heck it was.
That's
24
right.
months.
That's right.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what you're thinking, yeah.
This is just permanent financing for what we've
It
already.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
2
2
years
years
Exactly.
ago, that was
It
approved.
is.
For the bands we had in place, but now they're competing to finalize that. I think that's what.
Got it.
It's
I've
a little-
always been warned about bond premiums, so I'm just telling you, the reason I raised it, I took graduate level classes, some of the top professors in the country on bonds.
I'm
And
glad
they've
you
always
did.
warned us on premiums, so that's why I'm asking the questions.
We just use
Yeah.
it to peg.
So our interest rates look like they're going to be anywhere from 2 to 2.25% on this. Again, it depends on the length, the term, the amount, our rating.
So our rating is good now.
And can we get a lesser interest rate if we forgo some of this premium?
No. You get a lesser interest rate if you're rated higher by Moody's. And the chances of being rated higher are minimal because we don't have an airport or railroad going through this town. So we're probably as high as we'll ever be.
So you're positive on that, that we're not gonna get a better interest rate if we
So-
take less of a premium?
I don't understand your question.
I'm saying they're paying us money, the bank,
Yes.
to take a very large premium.
Well, essentially, though,
It
that
becomes
goes
a
to
net-
lower your
It
interest
becomes
rate.
a net interest cost. You will receive 20 bids. Some will give you hardly any premium, some will give you a high premium.
But they'll give you
Some
hardly
will
any
measure that
premium for a
against the
lower
rate.
rate.
Someone will change the rate. What the financial advisor does with their software is compares all of them and comes up with the best combination of interest rate and premium for a NIC, your net interest
Yeah,
cost. We take the lowest NIC. Always have, always will.
So the premium goes to offset the interest
Yeah,
cost
the interest
over
rate.
the life
But
of
from the bank's perspective, they want the interest rate because that's non-taxable to them.
Yeah.
That's income
It's a
that
benefit.
escapes taxation. So they're dragging that interest rate out of us, but then they're compensating it back by way of the premium, I
Right.
think, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right?
Use the TIC or the NIC? Use the true interest cost or the net interest?
NIC.
Net
We base the selection on the NIC, the net interest.
You know, I gotta brush up on this, but I'll take a look
I'm
and,
sure he will.
yeah,
Contact those professors.
Yeah.
I will.
And then the banks turn around and sell the stuff again.
Yeah.
And they're
2
gonna
or 3
make,
times.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 or 3 times.
There's a big benefit to those, you're right.
Next page shows, at the bottom, if you look, those are the 3 bond issuances that the town has. One was a 2012 refunding, which was for 2004, 2007. I believe it rolled into a refunding. 2014, and then a 2005, which I've highlighted up above on 7/1/20 was the final payment on that. So that 2005 has dropped off the books, which is why now the timing is good for us then to
Go back
replace with additional funding. Doesn't have a major impact on us or the mill rate.
This was all part of your grand design in the first place, wasn't it?
It was. That's why we went with bond anticipation notes initially, and then the market kept coming down during that period. So I was prepared to go for full bond after 6 months, but with the rates coming down,
You waited.
I went for another year, and now I think we're positioned fairly well on this. So.
Sounds good. And then the oil issue on the roads went down because nobody was driving, and it all,
Yeah.
you just won the lottery.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well, let's hope it's so volatile, let's hope that's still in place
Yeah.
when we go to bid,
there you go.
when we issue. Because they were up to 4% with COVID in March.
Yeah.
It did, and it was unfortunate for those towns that were actually going out at that time. But the markets have now stabilized.
Yeah.
I hope,
So,
yeah.
Okay,
okay, that's it.
thank you, Mike. All right, transfers and appropriations.
I have some concerns with the transfers. I did review them.
Yeah, they're all in your packet.
I printed it down, so it's the same thing, right?
I think kind of to follow up on our earlier discussion, I drafted a letter I'd like to read and make a motion based on.
I'll second it for the
Let me,
reason of discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to read the following letter, draft for discussion, to the Summers Board of Selectmen, from the Summers Board of Finance dated today. The Board of Finance recently learned of a series of bonuses awarded to town employees in June 2020 totaling $32,000. These bonuses were not included as a detailed line item in the approved budget, and they were not approved or reviewed by the Board of Finance as an additional appropriation or transfer. It was also reported that the first selectman received a salary increase effective July 1st, 2020. This salary increase was not discussed or included as a line item in the budget approved by the Board of Finance. We have serious concerns about the legality of the bonuses and salary increase for the first selectman and the potential they may violate state statutes, the town charter, and town ethic rules. The Board of Finance is requesting an independent investigation and audit. This investigation should include a detailed accounting of any raises and bonuses awarded to town employees for fiscal year 19-20 and the prior years to at least fiscal year 16-17, along with the legal authority the Finance Department acted upon to grant them. This report should contain an opinion as to the legality of these actions and the potential remedies if violations occurred. It should also outline recommended changes to processes to ensure our Finance Department is following best practices around transparency and accountability. Further, the Finance Department has presented a list of transfers for fiscal year 19-20. Prior to approving these transfers, we're requesting detailed information and supporting documents for each request. This should include written justification and itemized additional costs from the directors of the applicable departments. We look forward to examining the transfer process and working together on implementing system and process changes to increase transparency. As elected town leaders, we're given enormous responsibility and trust, and we must ensure that transparency, accountability, and adherence to applicable laws and regulations are followed for all financial transactions. I'd like to make a motion to send that letter to the Board of Selectmen for action.
I'll second it for discussion. Discussion?
Well, my question is, I mean, I think, given what's transpired, it's well-founded, but Bud has agreed to provide us with the information that I think you're requesting here. Should we first see what Bud has to say and let Bud provide us with the information that he said he would provide as to these salary increases or bonuses or whatever, and let's let Bud do it before we demand an independent review of it. I'd much prefer to see what Bud and Mike have to say about things first. Does that make sense?
I mean, I would say the outrage is very high in town right now. I mean, I've gotten many calls. In fact, I had a family member at the local supermarket said that they overheard people talking about it this weekend in a checkout aisle. So I think that the public, the town is watching us. I think it's, they got caught. I mean, there were some things done, I think, that were, in my opinion, and I would like to see an investigation and a legal opinion, that were less than transparent. I think that a town employee brought this to our attention. I'm wondering, what basis was used. If this town employee had not come forward, we never would have known. So I would like to go back, and if people need to be held accountable, I'd like to hold them accountable. Because I think the system is broken here, and I think we need accountability. Or if something, this came up at the Board of Selectmen meeting, the Board of Selectmen said they did not approve these increases in bonuses. The Board of Finance had no knowledge. And I think our taxpayers and voters are concerned. And I think we owe it to them to give them the answers. Now, Mike, I would leave to the Board of Selectmen the scope. I think at a minimum, we're going to need an opinion from the town attorney. That's going to cost some money. I think it's money well spent. I think we have a very high return on investment here, but I think it's going to send a very strong message that we value transparency. And again, if the Board of Selectmen decides a more limited scope is appropriate, I would be okay with that. But I think they should have that discussion and then come back to us with their report and their legal opinions as far as legality of what happened.
Any other comments?
I think we've got to give them an opportunity to set the record straight. I agree with Mike. Let them come forward with it. And then at that point, we should probably look at, if we can't figure it out, we need to look at a third party to look at it. But from my perspective, they operated within the budget we approved and the town approved. And I think that, I don't know, I don't have the detail on the transfers, but that's what we're asking for.
Two separate issues.
Yeah, so
Well, I
I
know
think
that
we're
they
trying
are.
to, I think we're trying to
You're
close out
doing
the books
year-end
for,
transfer issues, trying to balance the budget.
To close out the
Section
20
7-347, where Board of Finance are authorized to take the surplus in each one of the accounts and balance the other accounts so that the budget is
and
totally balanced.
you have to close
So
the
that the
budget by a
amount that
certain
gets
date.
returned to general fund balance is an accurate balance.
So what happens? if-
Audited every year, the financial audit looks at that, looks at the transfers, asks us questions, looks at the budget.
Well, what happens if we just table these transfers until the next meeting?
That's
No,
what I would like to do.
Nothing.
Nothing to come up until next meeting.
That would be
I
a
thought you
second
had the
motion.
The
I
next
would like to
meeting
make,
would be
yeah.
in September. The auditors will probably have been here by the time your next meeting comes. They will ask us, when is the Board of Finance going to vote on the transfers of unexpended balances?
But that's not, that delay isn't attributable to you, that'd be attributable to us.
Yes,
But
it
it's
would
a
be.
separate issue.
And it's a separate issue.
It's a
It has
separate
nothing to
issue.
do with the other issue
With
that
the
he's
other
talking
issue,
about.
because he stayed
seeking
within
a
his
legal
his
opinion.
budget line item.
But he didn't, though. I mean, there's salary transfers all over this, and that's my concern. I mean, regular salaries, regular salaries, regular salaries, regular salaries.
I think you better read
Those
up
are-
on this and see
those
how
are
it
monies
actually is
coming out
supposed to
of
take
them.
Yeah,
place.
you're taking.
I have, Mike, and most every other town I've ever seen does transfers as the money's spent. And they don't ask for permission after the money's already been spent. So what would happen if
No,
we-
this is not asking for permission after, this is a year-end balancing the budget with it's been done every single year. Go back and look at it. We have them for every year.
I don't know that that's always how it's done in every town. In fact, I think most towns do budget amendments
Um,
before they spend the money because there's no legal appropriation unless we approve it.
We've put this in front of our
Just as, if I may say this,
Yeah.
you tell me if I'm wrong. If there's no downside to setting this transfer aside for 30 days, and it allows you and Bud to have the time to present the information that you said you would provide to us.
True. All I'm saying is it's not related to.
I
the issue
understand. I
that he is
understand
raising.
that. I understand that that's what you're saying, and I don't have any reason to disagree with you. I'm just saying that Bill thinks that there is some connection between the two, and I'm saying if there's no downside to waiting a month, maybe that gives us time to have the information from you and Bud, and maybe with the full disclosure of everything that Bill is looking for, we get a way to wrap this up and get our arms around this without
So I'm fine with that, but my only question is, you don't have an obligation to close the books by a certain date like I do?
We do have the obligation to close the books by the time the auditors come, yes.
Let's schedule a special meeting in August then. I'm ready for that. You know, with more transparency and disclosure, but I would still like to see a legal opinion as to what happened. That will give us clarity. I mean, right now, we're taking your word for it, but I mean, you got
You're
the
not
second.
taking my word for it, you're
Well,
taking
you
the
got the
word
second
of the
biggest
auditors
bonus.
for every year
You know,
that they've
so-
done their audit here.
I think that we need to get the legal opinion, the Board of Selectmen. I think we leave it to them. You'll let the Board of Selectmen do an engagement. Again, Mike, I'm fine if it's a limited engagement. You know, we can engage with the town attorney for, you know, a small amount. We already have money budgeted for legal opinions. Let's put this to bed then with a legal opinion so that we know what happened and we can give the answer, because
I don't disagree, but I would like, it's my view that I'd like to see what Bud and Mike have to say about it in the first instance. And that gives us a baseline.
okay.
And you'll have their considered opinion. I mean, we've worked with these folks for a long number of years, and they've always been straight with us before. So even if it's a mistake of some kind, at least if we have their information first, then we can decide what any additional steps may be. And maybe an additional step is to get a legal opinion. But for the first point, I think I want to ask the people that I've worked with for years, tell me what went on. Tell me, give me the details. Right?
All right, so with that recommendation, then, would you like to call for a meeting in August so that we can do this? Is that what would be the next step here?
Well, how much time do you need?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's an answer for
We
Bud.
can supply the
Well,
information.
I'm sorry?
We can supply the information relatively quickly.
I think the issue that I have, and the issue that came out in my discussion with Brian, is that we were tricked. You know, the Board of the Finance Office knew that the emergency management position had been eliminated in the amount of $32,000. They left the money in the budget to conceal it, to make the amounts look even when the budget got adopted by the Board of Selectmen and the Finance. Hidden in there, without our knowledge, were salary raises, and maybe even apparently bonuses. That's the issue that I have, and I think that's the issue that we need to get to the bottom of. That's the limited scope that I would like to look at.
Well, didn't you budget for raises for FY, for the fiscal year?
Sure.
For some employees, I'm concerned about the first selectman's office, though, where they intentionally left the $32,000 in the line item so that it looked like there was no change, but there was really some extra.
Where would you put that $32,000?
I would cut it.
It remains where it was budgeted, and it's not spent.
No, it
It's
actually
supposed
went to the fire department in overtime because you increased the fire department's budget to compensate, and that was what was presented in the public
When
meeting.
did I do that?
This year, you added extra money. I mean, we can play back the records, because I remember asking about it. And you added money for overtime and part-timers because Glenn has assumed those roles at the fire department. So the $32,000 was left in there, knowing that the position was eliminated. That's the issue that I
totally
have.
disagree with your interpretation of all of this.
Well, please give me the alternate explanation of the
The
$32,000.
alternative explanation is the budget that is voted on by the town is the $34 million
But
budget,
the town didn't get to
and
vote
that
this
if
year.
each,
Well, that's
And the
what I
town
said.
did not get the vote this year. I think that's an
a
excellent
separate-
point.
Guys,
Okay.
you're
but
looking at line
you're
item.
parsing things that it didn't get that because of an emergency.
Like the
And then we
reason,
did everything according to law, we didn't do a thing without a legal opinion.
the
So-
issue I have is transparency, okay? And I think that we owe it, and there's outrage is high, like I already explained. It's been covered in the news media. I think they're continuing to track this.
Yeah.
And I think we owe an explanation to the voters and taxpayers. So please continue explaining the $32,000 that was left in the
You-
line item.
Okay.
I mean, explain.
I would wait for the board to vote on this, because I don't think you gave anyone the courtesy of discussing this with them in advance. So,
Should we move
You
the
can
question?
Are we
chose
talking
to-
our board?
Yeah, you got a
Oh,
motion on the
There's a
board.
motion on the table.
There's a
There's a
motion
motion.
on the table. What's the vote?
Okay.
Okay.
And the motion is on
I-
sending this letter to the Board of Selectmen.
And I'm open
So
to
you know what you're voting
modifications
on.
too. If a member would like to propose modifications, if there's some modifications, I mean, I'm open to editing the letter. I think we should send something. Again, if we want to modify it to say that we're requesting the documentation be turned over to the Board of Finance for review, I'm okay with that.
I would move to amend the motion on the floor to defer any action with regard to the proposed letter until such time as we've seen the explanation from the first selectman and Mike Marinaccio, the chief financial officer, as to the circumstances surrounding the use of the $32,000.
So moved.
I don't know that we can modify a motion, though. I think we
You can
could
amend
modify.
the motion.
Can-
Yeah,
You can amend the
amend it.
motion.
You can modify.
He has an amendment on the table for your motion, so it has to get second, what I did.
Okay.
You vote on the amendment first.
Yep.
And then you vote on the motion.
Okay. So the amendment is to.
Give them their opportunity to present their detail.
Okay.
Before we act on
On a
the
more-
proposed letter that
I
you
think,
submitted.
based on what you said, Mike, in their service, we owe them an opportunity to explain it.
Okay, so now, all right, let's have a vote
On the amendment.
on the amendment. In favor?
Aye.
There's only 4 of us tonight?
That's it.
Yeah, they're
You gotta cast a vote, one way or the other.
I don't know. I don't see the difference in letting the Board of Selectmen have it. They don't have meetings that often.
I would like them to have the opportunity to handle it with an investigation they see
What
fit.
happens if it's-
If they want to do an internal investigation, the two selectmen, I'm okay with that. But I think that, we owe something independent. From the selectmen is fine, but again, so 2 in favor.
And I'll say, I don't see why we just can't do it. It's probably, it's a mix, it's mute right now, because it's 2 and 2.
Okay, so I'm against, so the amendment fails, so then the original motion stands.
Yeah.
Well, the original motion is now up for vote.
Okay,
Yep.
so the original motion's now up for vote, so.
All right, let's call on the original.
Were there any other amendments that we could satisfy to reconcile this? I mean, to
Well,
modify?
I don't think you could get much more lenient than that. I mean,
I'm saying, I'm willing to modify a letter. I'll even make it a paragraph to say, we have some concerns. We would like to,
well, I think that's what we're doing.
production of the doc, but I'd like to put it in writing, formally. Because
Well,
they
it'll be
may,
in a minute.
Well, it'll be in writing. The motion that I presented would have been in writing, and it would have said what you have in fact said in terms of asking for the explanation of what transpired.
The only modification is if the documentation isn't accurate, we would move forward with a formal review.
I would just like the legal opinion to go with it. And I think that, the town attorney should be engaged to render his opinion as to the facts as we know them. And I think most of the facts have already been laid out. I appreciate the opportunity for an explanation, but I think many of the facts have already been laid out in public
But
meetings.
wouldn't it make sense to have the response from the selectmen first before you engage an attorney to make some opinion as to?
And remember,
What happened?
that response is gonna be recorded, so, and then they're gonna have to live with it.
I just like the idea of an independent person
I
looking
get
at the
that.
books.
I got it the first time you said it.
But wouldn't you rather have the statements from the participants first as to what happened? So you can say to the town attorney, here's what I think, and here's what
Right. It's a much
Bud
more-
Noor and Mike Marinaccio think.
So
What's your view?
My opinion is the trust has already been violated. So my level of trust has decreased. The chance, I think, was back in March when the budget was proposed. And I think that essentially something was brought out. Someone got caught. And when that happens, that's what puts out my alarm bells. And that is the reason I'd like someone independent to look at it, because trust is not there. The level of trust I had prior to this was much higher than the level of trust I have right now. And that is my concern.
Well, you can make it part of the audit. If, we close the books out, hand them, do this process, and then if you're not happy with it, we'll pay extra for a special line item in the audit.
But that's my issue. The audit does not look at the legal authority. They just look at the expenditures that are done. My concern is the legal authority.
Well, you're on a witch hunt here. If you
No, I mean,
want a witch hunt, then just, we can go, he already said, file your ethics papers. If you're on a witch hunt, go for it.
I think there's other avenues though, and I think that we
Well,
owe.
you can't have it both ways, Bill. If you want their asses, go get them. If, we're offering an opportunity for an adjustment here as gentlemen and a lady,
If you're not happy with that, then file other paperwork.
Okay.
But I'm not willing to sit here till 10 o'clock at night.
Then I guess we
debating
can
this.
vote, I mean, we'll vote on the motion.
Sure.
Well, wait, where are we now?
The motion to
Voting
send the
on
letter.
The voting
Well,
on the
just-
motion
just
on
think
the
of
table right now.
what you're running up against here. If you get the same vote on the motion that you just got on the amendment,
It's
then you got nothing.
Okay.
So,
Then we can make a second motion, though, we can make a second motion after this fails.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get what you're looking for. I think if you take it step by step, you'll end up getting exactly what you need. You'll get the information from the folks that are on the ground, who have made those decisions, will get their explanation. If you are not satisfied with it, which apparently you wouldn't be, and I understand that, then you can ask for a legal opinion, and you can ask for an audit.
Okay, so I get,
I think-
I'll be candid with you, you'd have my support in that regard. I just can't see jumping the gun. I
Yeah,
just
that's
can't.
my biggest issue, Bill, and I.
So I'll agree to
Don't
that
mean to
then.
get upset about it, but, we've worked with these people for, for me, 2 decades, forever.
okay, so I'll agree then
Let them
To
have
hold
their
a-
chance to clear their name.
to hold a special meeting in August, if we schedule a special meeting, I'll withdraw the motion, and if, on the condition, that we schedule a special meeting in August for a presentation, of the applicable documents, along with the legal, I'd like to invite the town attorney here as well, to be present, and, then we'll have a review prior to taking any other action. So on that condition, I will, withdraw my motion.
Will that give you enough time for the audit?
I don't know
Financial
vacation
audit?
time. I don't know who's
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be here or
fine.
not be here.
Anytime in August will be fine.
But I would think that at some point we could line things up.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be fine.
I'm fine with it, maybe like August 10th or so, August
I
17th?
can't commit to a date. I have to find out who's, so-
Well, I think it's just gonna be hard
The town
to
attorney
schedule
could be
a
on
meeting.
vacation that day.
Okay,
Um,
and I'd like
As
to
long
invite
as you
this,
give me until after August 7th, I'll have all of the invoices in as well.
That's fair
so
enough.
As long as you give me till after.
and I'd like some
Then
time to
I'll
look
have-
at
I'll
the
have final
information prior to the meeting.
Yeah, so I'll have final transfers by August 7th.
So maybe we could schedule like somewhere around the 17th, because there's no meeting in August.
Right.
Is a target, but I mean, it's contingent upon the town attorney being available, and also we'll invite the other members of the Board of Selectmen to the meeting, and then we'll have the document. And again, I'd like to see the documents probably about a week ahead of time, to have
So
time to go
what
through them.
you're saying on that, though, is that the Board of Selectmen are gonna have notice the meeting as well, because they can't be here without that.
That's fine.
So, okay.
I mean, I'd like to, okay. So I'd like to make a motion, or do we need a motion for that?
To withdraw?
Well, no,
Oh.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Oh, okay.
I'll withdraw my motion, which I think you just have to agree as the seconder.
I'll second.
Okay.
if you send it.
And I'd like to see a special meeting called in August then that includes presented documents from the finance department, invites the Board of Selectmen, and also includes the town attorney for a discussion. I'll be okay with that.
And that date is going to be subject to
Availability.
availability.
Everyone's
Subject.
schedule.
Understood. And making sure that Brian can produce all the documents and give us advance notice. So I'm okay with that.
Fine, whatever.
So we got a motion. I need a
You
second.
got that motion written down now, Brian?
Is that a motion?
We'll have a
God for
recording.
recording.
Is that a request or a motion?
He rescinded
He
the motion.
rescinded
He
Yeah.
rescinded his motion, or he withdrew his motion on the letter and made a motion
I'll tell you what, I'll
to
make a
hold a
motion
special
to
meeting in
table.
August.
I'll make a motion to table the transfers, pending scheduling a special meeting in August at a time to be determined, and inviting the town attorney as well as the other selectmen to that meeting so that we can have a detailed presentation as to what transpired.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
All right, other business.
I think we just covered it.
Okay, now we're going to go through the approval of minutes.
So the May 12th still cannot be voted on, because you only have 3 people here that were at the meeting, and that was the problem last time as well. And so even though they were voted on at the June 22nd meeting, I was informed by the town clerk because there was not a voting majority. The approval is not complete, and since there's only 3, because Bill wasn't at that meeting, Those will continue on until the next
That
meeting.
wasn't
And I
the,
wasn't at the 22nd, so you can't vote.
And you weren't at the 22nd
You
meeting,
can't
so
vote on that.
minutes cannot be approved tonight.
okay. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second, okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Adjourn at 8:30.
I got 8:30 on the dot on my watch.
Okay.
I don't know.